Hi guys, this video is just going to work through a Lotus Blossom brainstorming of the opportunities and constraints which we can consider while looking at the context of a spatial or urban design. So that is the center of the topic of our brainstorm, and then I'm going to look at a few options or things that may be a constraint or opportunity to look at. So we have technology, we have community, social, and scale. Of the project. We have style, the aesthetic of the design. We've got usage, how the space could be used, and environmental. At the moment, those are the 8 of the 9 options that I can think of. So I'm going to put them out here and explore those with more depth. Now we can look at what potentially could go in that space later, but at the moment we're just going to look at all of those different options and expand on them. So I think I want to start with environmental because that is like a clear site or space, but I've realized I've just laid this out a little bit incorrectly by putting my bold line in the wrong place. So I'm just going to change that now because it's going to bug me. Here we go. We're back on track. Environmental. The sun. Its orientation. Where does it come? Where does it set? And where does it rise in the morning? Viewpoints. What can we see from the location? Seasons. How does that affect the potential usage, the community, all those elements. With that is the weather and the use of the land, wind, resources on the space. How could the environment be considered as a resource? Are we going to connect? How are we going to connect to the environment? Are we going to be above, below, within? What could our options be? Are we going to contrast with our design, or are we going to harmonize? Are we going to consider sustainability? And then usage, I guess, would be a big start. So an opportunity is to change the interaction of people with the location, or change to be interactive. We could change the usage to be more productive in some way. We could change it to be more user-friendly or accessible. Accessible is considering people who can't just walk onto a place like us. Is it accessible for all types of people? we change to be more sustainable? Just get these fitting in here a bit better. Can it change to be multifunctional, maybe? Okay, I'm going to leave it at that and see where else we can take this exploration. How about the community? Is there a gap in the community which we can provide with the space that we might design? How are we going to ask the community what they want and need? Now with this community that we are looking at, we also can ask them what their needs are and also what their pains are. So what are the difficulties of being in this community? What is a gap? In relation to pains, it could be a pressure. So these kind of terms are in relation to design thinking, and if you haven't watched our videos on that, those resources, please backtrack and go and find those in your project instructions. With technology, is it pre-made? The structure or something that you are going to be putting on in the space, is it going to maybe be created through 3D printing? Are we going to consider solar energy? What type of lighting might we use? Are we going to go green and be sustainable maybe? Are we gonna maybe, for example, expanding on that, is it going to be like a vertical gardens? I don't know. How are you going to use technology that is current or developing right now in the world? Okay, is the style going to be organic? Is it going to be geometric? What are your options? Geometric. Metric. There we go. What textures could you use? What experience do you want your people to have? And this kind of goes back to the usage, right? What is the use going to be? Who is it going to provide? The style has a big connection to the usage in terms of experience. Is it going to be more natural, or is nature going to connect with the man-made in some way? Could it transform the current location? How is it going to connect to that theme that you have are using for your inspiration? And again, similar to environment, are you going to contrast the environment with your design, or are you going to harmonize with it? Okay. So, scale. Are you going to have lots of users? What type of variety of users? Is it going to be landmark, your design? Is it going to be micro, so really big? or is it going to be macro? Think of like with a photograph, a macro lens is looking at, I'm mixing them up. Macro is big and micro is small. Micro. And a macro lens makes everything that's so small become big. So are you going to be designing things that's much more like people focused and scale, or are you going to be designing something that's really big like a landmark? What kind of structural needs may you need to consider and keep in mind? And again, experience is a thing here. Experience and that range of experiences that you could create through different scale. And then also people with limited abilities or specific needs. Okay, one last one that I want to explore here is social. How about, do you want to change the social attitudes of people? Think of a cafe that has one large dining table in it and you have to share a table with strangers. Does that change the social environment by the interior designer choosing to place a dining table there? How are you going to support the social needs of your users? Do you want to challenge the social needs? Do they really need to have what they think they need to develop connections between groups? That is a really powerful one that you have as a designer to do that. And one more, which is positive. How do you make sure that your design has a positive impact on the social experience of people within your space? So starting from the center point of designing a spatial design, designing an urban design, I have looked at some different areas that I will need to consider within my design, and then looking at the opportunities within these different themes. Okay, so I want you to take some of this information and expand on that in your own context analysis with your chosen space.